Production funding for this episode of 55 Plus is provided by the Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations and by viewers like you.
In this premiere episode of 55 Plus, we'll take a look at the importance of maintaining social connections and the effects that social isolation can have on a senior's mental health. Is social media the answer? I'm Amy Mangold. Welcome to 55 Plus, a show highlighting issues that impact seniors. We'll be hearing from experts today about social isolation and how that affects mental health for seniors and how using social media can alleviate some of that stress.
My name's Norman Adams. I'm 72 years old. I have been asked to speak somewhat about my involvement with social media, which in my case is pretty much what I use as Facebook. And I keep connected with family members and friends, and it's like getting a note from them, not daily, sometimes weekly. You know, sometimes I don't hear from people on there for a month. They may not post. So I enjoy it. Some of the political hoo-ha gets a little bit much. You have to kind of ignore a lot of the posts. But when you know who you're connected to and what you're talking about, they do too. So it's been good during the 2020 pandemic.
Social distancing seems to be a common theme that we've been seeing this year. However, isolation from family, friends, and even coworkers can put a mental strain on seniors. Here with me now is Dr. Laura Becker from the University of Evansville to educate us as to how the current situation is affecting older generations and our seniors. Hello, Dr. Becker.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us for this very important and timely topic. So tell us, how can using social media affect our older generations and seniors?
Well, even before COVID, it was very important for people to have the social media so that they can keep track of their grandchildren. They may not have the ability to get to all of the events that the children are having, either mobility or living in a different town. So seeing their grandchildren grow up, seeing graduations, and hopefully not weddings, but nowadays weddings, to stay connected with different generations. Also, it helps them keep connected to old friends that they may not be able to go and see or haven't talked to in a long time.
And these connections are very important to battling loneliness, correct? Because that can be a real problem during a time like this.
Yes, we are wired, our brains are wired to have connections. We learned many years ago that if you work in a group, so if you hunt in a group, if you grow plants and food in a group, you're safer. So being connected with people is hardwired. Now, there's always a range. Some people like me are extreme extroverts and we really want to be connected, and some people just need a couple of people to interact with from time to time. But every human needs a connection with another human.
So what effects have you seen that social media has on our seniors?
We do see more connections, but we also do see some seniors that are having challenge with the concept of what does the social media mean? If something comes up on a Facebook feed, is that person's comment or is that person's friend's comment? So we need to make sure that elderly understand, or people in their 70s and 80s understand that everything that's showing up is not the person's idea, it's their friend's ideas.
Sure. Now, technology and social media and all of this can be pretty intimidating, but some are pretty savvy as well. Tell us about an example that you know that shows it doesn't matter your age, you can still be connected.
So I am fortunate enough to have my mom still living. She just turned 90, and she realized several years ago with her hearing impairment that it was easier for her to text her family than to call them on the phone. So we are used to getting random texts throughout the week from mom. Sometimes she kind of goads us into conversations, but it's great that she can reach out and get her message to us.
Most definitely, because isolation and depression has become very prevalent. So what are some of the effects that some of this isolation and loneliness have on our older generations?
So I'm going to refer back to my brain science background. As we get older, our worlds get smaller. Just think of it as reverse. When a child's born, their world gets larger as they grow. So it's important to not let somebody shrink into just their home and just their single routine. Yes, routines are important for especially the elderly, so they can remember, did I have breakfast? Did I have lunch? But to have a social interaction that breaks them out of that simple routine, it may challenge them a little bit, but it gives them something more to think about, especially getting in contact with family, getting in contact with old friends, which brings up memories from the past, which can bring a lot of joy.
Oh, yes. And I think we forget that our mental health really affects our entire person. So talk to us about the importance of really paying attention to and keeping our mental health in check and on our radar as we get older.
That keeping your mental health together can be helped by social media, interacting with friends, interacting with family members, because sometimes we don't realize that we're changing. We don't realize that our thoughts may be getting a little more sad, getting a little more angry. And so interacting with others can help us remember that, can help us keep track of, did we eat today? When's the last time we exercised? What's a fun story that we can come up with so we don't dive down into just being, I don't want to say self-absorbed. I want to say just getting too isolated in your own world. Other people can help you understand where you are in your day.
And what would you say to people who are a little intimidated by all of this? We don't want to add to the stress and isolation. We want to alleviate this by some of the things that they can do. So tell us about some encouragement that we can have for seniors in terms of learning these things, some tips on how to learn these things, and how to make it easy for them to connect rather than that becoming a burden to try and learn something new.
Well, one, don't try it alone. Grab somebody you know, a family friend, someone from your church, a nephew that understands this material, and has them walk through the process of putting that technology on your computer. In the case of my mom, my nephew runs an IT department, and so he can actually get a hold of her computer and put things on for her.
That's fabulous.
Not everybody has that, but that may be, I don't know, maybe a charge for people out there who are technology savvy to gather their skills and help out elderly as a service, as a community service.
That would be wonderful. So what can older Americans do if they believe, and I think that this is a difficult one too, because as you mentioned, it's sometimes hard to recognize this in us. But what can they do if they believe that they're starting to feel more isolated, if they notice they're more down or they're more depressed? What are some tips for them?
Well, one, this is very hard because as a mature, responsible adult, you're a mature, responsible adult. You shouldn't have to ask for help. You shouldn't have to ask for an extra time talking to people. You should be able to take care of yourself. So one, try to step away from the idea that we're perfect and we're in control of our lives and we don't need other people. We always do. But start with a close family member. Start with a dear friend. You don't have to go to a phone number of someone you don't know, but just reaching out to just one person could make a cascade effect that gets you some help and some interaction that you need.
Sure. Well, I know from my own experience in my family, sometimes older seniors are reluctant to reach out to the younger ones. Oh, you're too busy, and I don't want to impose, and I don't want to bother you if you're busy with the kids. So how about some tips of encouragement to get over those types of hurdles that they feel like a burden when really we're waiting to hear from them as well, right?
If you're family and you are truly friends, then you're not pestering. You are being a friend. You're being a good parent. You're being a good child. So don't be afraid.
Sure.
Please reach out. One thing I tell students a lot is if you never ask, you'll always hear no.
Very true. That's great advice. And really quickly, from your experience, do you have a platform that you feel like is the easiest and simplest and quickest way to connect with others? I know you mentioned text. Would that be one of them, or do you suggest other social media as well?
Text, it's very easy to communicate through Facebook. Zoom or Skype may be a little beyond if they are Mac users. FaceTime is pretty easy. So I would stick with text and FaceTime and Facebook.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Becker. We appreciate all of your wonderful information and we appreciate your time today. We hope you have a great day and stay connected with Mom. I tell you, that's amazing and that's encouragement to the others that it doesn't have to be that difficult. They can still stay connected, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan. St. Paul's Episcopal Church introduced me to a technology called Zoom. On Sundays, we worship and share coffee hour. I like Zoom and bought an account. It's user-friendly for a non-techie. I set up meetings with my PEO chapter, with friends, and with my out-of-state cousins, two of who did not know one another. My Bridge friends introduced me to a technology called Bridge-Base Online. It's fun and good for keeping mind sharp. I thought I would never say this, but thank goodness for technology. It saved me from disconnection from the world outside my door.
Staying in contact with our families and friends is an easy way to help combat loneliness. A simple phone call can bring much needed joy to someone who's feeling the effects of isolation. However, we live in a world with the opportunity to be able to talk face to face with those we can't be with in person, but sometimes that might be a little difficult for seniors. So here to talk about the important role social media plays in our lives, especially now, is Erin Gibson, a professor at the University of Southern Indiana. Hi, Erin, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
We're very excited to talk to you about it, and it's such an important topic. So explain, why is social media so important in a crisis like COVID-19?
Well, I think we're seeing the importance and then the dangers that it presents during this time. The one thing that social media has brought to us is such immediacy. If you think back to our previous, the history of communications, communities were not connected with wires and internet, and so if you think about how slow information would move in those times, compared to now, which as soon as anyone says anything, CDC announces something, your state health department announces something, we know we're keeping up with data day to day. And so it's important that we are able to follow the reliable sources like that to tell us what we are actually dealing with. But it is also really helpful in helping us stay connected with one another. Because of this crisis, can be a really lonely time. And so here we are all being told, it's best if, the safest place for you, if you can, is to be home. But I know that personally, that if it were not for these tools, I would be in a much different place right now if I were being told to stay home and isolate. So I think those connections, and especially with the fewer people who are living in your household, the older you get, those social media plays this critical role in connecting.
I know there are a lot of choices out there, so what would you suggest would be the best social media platform for seniors?
Oh, for seniors, there's a lot of studies out there telling us that young people are no longer on Facebook, and that Facebook is the place where most older people are. And young people think older means 25 plus. But I think Facebook has a really good platform for staying connected with people that you love and for following information. The issues are security, data security, lots of what they know about you, and I think as long as you're aware of those things and that you're practicing caution, I think it's a great way of staying connected to large numbers of people.
Explain the differences between the pros of social media, the connection and those types of things, and some of the cons of social media, which can be that misinformation.
Yeah, the biggest problem is that speed can also be a good thing, and it is also a terrible thing, because speed means that the information that gets out there doesn't have time to be vetted oftentimes. And especially when we're watching person-to-person type of communications, individuals repeating something they heard through the media, something they saw, or wouldn't even be able to identify where they saw it. They just heard it somewhere. I mean, we've all heard that. Where'd you get that? Well, I heard it, or I read it. Where? And so that speed, and then the inability to cite where you got some information, causes some real issues with our structure and our understanding, and can play do some real damage if we have the wrong information out there.
What suggestions would you give to them in terms of trusting what you see on social media, and how can they investigate and filter and evaluate what could be misinformation that really can spread like wildfire on social media?
Yeah. We are more in the driver's seat than ever with our information. But that, we've heard with great power comes great responsibility. Boy, do we have some huge responsibilities on our shoulders now. When we sign on to social media, and when we first started those accounts, I don't think we realized how much we were agreeing to. This means that we have to be vigilant. My biggest advice is to practice skepticism, not cynicism. I'm not a cynical person. I think that goes to a very dark place when we start being cynical about everything. That means we don't think anything's true, and we think everyone's out to lie to us, or that they're all in it together. But skepticism is being able to take each piece of information that you encounter and just take it through some quick steps and ask if it's true. I created a system where I call it whoa, wait, what? And it's this whoa is that initial, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, or I knew that guy was wrong about that, or I knew that he was up to no good. So that's that initial reaction we can't control. The wait is the biggest part of it. And that it's whoa, exclamation point, wait, period, what, question mark. And that period makes us pause. Wait. Just think for a moment, wait a minute, this might not be what my gut reaction is telling me this is, so I'm not going to share it, I'm not going to retweet it, I'm not going to talk about it until I know for sure. And then the what is the questioning that you take it through. Who's the source? Are other sources saying it? Can you confirm it anywhere else? What kind of bias does it have? What can you tell that somebody is like really pushing an agenda here with this information? And there are several other deeper steps that we could take. But for the most part, it's the idea of just pausing, which can get us through a lot of things, actually, the power of pause.
So Erin, I know you mentioned Facebook is one of the best platforms for seniors. And if someone's not familiar with Facebook, can you walk us through kind of how they get started online, if they're invited to a group, or if they get a message or they want to actually see their loved one through Messenger? Can you explain a few of those things for us?
Sure. I think one of the things that you need to realize is that there are many ways of interacting on Facebook, and I think it helps for you to understand if you're just getting started or if you've been on there and you're still a little confused. It helps to understand that there's a few different views that you can have. One is just your main feed. So when you log in, that's what you see. You see all the people that you're following. And if you're not following anyone yet, then you can just use the search bar to look for someone. You'll see their profile photo, and you'll be able to go and look at their profile, and you'll be able to click follow. And then from then on, every time they post, it will show up in that feed when you log on. But if you want to have more private conversation with someone, there's Facebook Messenger, and that's a little icon at the top. There's a couple different icons at the top. One is for your Facebook Messenger, and one is for your feed. If you scroll your mouse, if you just move your mouse over the top of it, it'll show you. It'll say which one is which. And in a Messenger, you can just click New Message and type in somebody's name that you're friends with, and you can start a conversation, a private conversation with them. And that will only be seen between whoever is in there. You can do more than one person if you want. There's also an option of groups, and I know that my family, actually my in-laws and my family, have a couple of different groups, and they're private. They look very much like your news feed, except the conversation is happening, and it's just only among the people who are in that group. And you might not be the one who sets it up. A family member who understands how this works might do that. And if you're invited, you just accept. You click accept. And then when you share there, anything you share there will not be visible in the main news feed. So it's helpful to know that that is a private conversation, although I do have to always warn that everything that is on Facebook doesn't necessarily mean it's going to always remain private. There are all sorts of tools that people use. They use screenshots and they share them with other people. So I always caution, that if you don't really want to talk about something too deep, just in case, maybe that's a better conversation for a phone call. Some other things to know about are the options to go to have a video call, and those can happen in the Messenger app, where you can actually click video, and you'll be calling the person and having a conversation with them. It's a little easier than trying to set up Skype or a Google Hangout or a Zoom chat, which you might be hearing a lot in the news these days. Yeah. The one thing I want to caution is I'm not a fan of leaving my settings for Facebook on allowing it to have access to my microphone or my camera. I just don't want to accidentally click that and then be broadcasting live on Facebook. So if you have questions about that, maybe someone in your family, maybe a neighbor, somebody might be able to help if you want to go into your phone settings and just tell it not to give it access. but you have to remember that then you won't be able to do messenger calls with your family if you have that setting turned off. And then my last piece of advice really is that, nothing can replace a good old phone call. And I think that message is mostly for grandchildren and children out there, is to make those phone calls. And if you have children and grandchildren, it's okay to ask them to call you, because nothing can replace that human connection and that human voice.
Erin Gibson, a journalism and social media professor with the University of Southern Indiana. We appreciate all of your fabulous information. Thank you so much. I'm sure we could do a longer show about this, and hopefully sometime we can share some more of that information. But thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, my name is Jack, and I'm here to give you a plug about the joys of video conferencing. Now, if you're an old geezer like me, computers are not your friend, and you don't learn how to do things very fast. There's about 4 popular programs that will do this video conferencing. There's Facebook Messenger, Google Meet, Zoom, and FaceTime. I got 2 pieces of advice. The first is pick one program and learn it before you try to get on any of the others. They're all essentially the same, but you can figure out, the bells and whistles are different, and so it's a lot easier just to spend some time with one and learn how to do it. Online, they've got tutorials like they will do for everything else. My second piece of advice is think about your background. The other party is going to be thinking about your background. So pick something that you're comfortable with. In this case, it's my room, and go with it.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you learned how to take better care and be aware of your mental health. We've seen how using social media safely can bring us closer together in a time when isolation is really safest. Learning to properly use these social media tools can help your overall health and help maintain mental wellness. Join us again as we continue to look into improving the health of seniors.